So recently I've been watching a lot of labor and delivery videos. I love them. So I thought that I would share mine. It's a pretty cool story. It's a pretty eventful story. So Viviana was born February 18th, 2016. But to really grasp this story, we have to start the day before on February 17th. This was the year 2016 that my mom turned 50. And when you turn 50, you have to get a colonoscopy done to make sure you good, okay? So my mom just happened to have hers scheduled on the morning of February 18th. So February 17th, she was drinking that clear liquid stuff to cleanse your body or whatever. So she was drinking that the whole day before. So keep that in mind. So February 17th, I had my 39-week appointment. My due date was February 22nd. So I was super excited because I was gonna go there and they're gonna be like, oh, you're close to having your baby. You're gonna get your baby soon. I was so anxious and so ready to meet Viv. So I go to the doctor and, he looks at me, he checks everything, and he says, well, you're gonna go into labor. And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, we just don't know when. And I was like, okay, cool. So, I try not to act super disappointed. He told me that if I didn't have my baby by the 22nd, then I would be set up for an induction date. And I did not want to be induced. I heard it hurt. I heard all of these things, and I didn't want to force her out, you know what I mean? Also, if I were to get induced, they do it at 41 weeks, and my 41-week mark was February 29th. Yep, this was leap year. So I was terrified that my daughter was going to be born on February 29th. I didn't want that. So I was sad, and I did what I usually do when I'm sad, which is go shopping. And this was when the new PX just opened up on Post. My doctor was a military doctor, so I was already on Post. But the new PX just opened up, and they had a MAC store in it. This is when I first started getting into makeup, at all. And I was so excited. So me and my mom go to MAC, and we spend way too much money on makeup. Shocker. But when we go to check out, they tell us that, we spent so much money that we could get a free makeover. And I was like, what? I've never had my makeup done. And they're like, yeah, we could do a full face of makeup for you because you spent this amount of money. And it'll be free, completely complimentary. And I was like, okay, yeah. So we set this time, and it's an hour away, if that. So we go eat. Well, I go eat while my mom drinks her clear liquid stuff. And we go back to MAC, and they do my makeup, and my face looks so good. And I was like, oh my God, if I go into labor right now, I'm gonna look so pretty. I was just like, man, I gotta go into labor. I gotta go into labor. I'm walking everywhere. I'm doing all these things. I gotta go into labor because my face looks so good. I won't have to do anything. I look so pretty. Let me go into labor now. But that didn't happen. So I was still sad. And I decided to take my little brother and sisters-in-laws, there's 4 of them, to Chuck E. Cheese because obviously they always make me happy. So we go to Chuck E. Cheese, we have a great time. I get home and my mom's still drinking her clear liquid stuff. She's done, she's finished it, she's good, okay? She's ready for her colonoscopy the next day. I get home and I just don't want to go to sleep. My makeup looks so good, and I don't want to take it off. My husband at the time, I was married, so my husband at the time was at work. He was on the night shift, so he had one in, 10. And he was going to work through the night, obviously. But I just remember it was midnight, and I was like, I'm not going to go into labor. And I remember taking off my makeup and just feeling so sad because I looked so good, and I was so sad. But I took off my makeup, and at this point of my pregnancy, I was waking up every single hour to go to the restroom. I woke up for my 6 o'clock bathroom break, and I felt this strong I don't even know, like a tightness feeling, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, is this a contraction? I never had Braxton Hicks. I never had anything like that. So I didn't know what it was. When I was like, I don't know, 35 weeks, something like that, I went to labor and delivery for something like totally unrelated, but they told me that I was 2.5 centimeters dilated and that I was having contractions, and I couldn't feel anything. So, you know, they gave me a pill to stop it, and that was that. I thought it was fine after that. Like, everything was good. I mean, she stayed in, so I feel like everything went fine. But I didn't know what it felt like. So I just felt like this, like, tightness, and I was like, oh my God, is this a contraction? So I texted my cousin, and she was awake because she had to take her brothers to school. But she was like, oh my God, are we gonna have a baby later tonight? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, later tonight. Because, you know, labor takes hours, sometimes days, like, labor takes a long time, so I'm expecting it to be later that night, if then, okay? So I'm walking halfway up the stairs to wake my mom up, and I was like, you know what, like, it's just one contraction. There's no point in me waking her up at 6, you know, her appointment's at 8:30 or something like that anyway, so, you know, I'll let her sleep. So I go back downstairs and I'm watching TV because I can't sleep anymore, and it was like 6:45, and I felt another one. So I feel another one, and I'm walking upstairs like, this is it, like, I'm gonna tell my mom, like, I felt another one. I mean, it was a whole, like, 40 minutes in between, so I mean, it wasn't coming quick, okay? It was a long time coming, but I'm finally feeling things like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a baby soon. So I go upstairs and I tell my mom, and she's like, oh my God, can you still take me to my colonoscopy? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, my sister was staying with us. She was living in Colorado at the time, but she had came for the baby to be born. So I was like, yeah, you know, I'll just take her with me, and I'll just, if anything, labor in the car, because Darnell won't accept you unless you're 5 centimeters dilated. And I didn't want to be walking around the hospital trying to get dilated before I could even, like, get a room, you know? So she was like, okay, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And she was like, okay, well, let's get ready. I'm gonna take a shower, get ready. And I was like, cool, me too. So I go downstairs, and it was like 7:15, 7:20. And my husband walks through the door, and he was like, any baby yet? And I was like, no, probably later tonight. And he was like, okay, cool. Then I'm gonna go ahead and take a sleeping pill and go to sleep. And I was like, cool, you know, he's been up working all night, cool. So it's like 7:45-ish, and I was like, you know, I should take a shower and get ready. We gotta go to the hospital soon. I gotta take my mom. So I turn on the water, I let it heat up a bit, then I get in the shower, and I was fine. I was completely fine before. Like, I had only felt 2 contractions. I was completely fine. The second I stepped in the water and the water hit my back, everything started happening. Like, I started feeling all this contractions, these pains, and I fall to the ground, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, like, what is happening? And I remember just like screaming. I get out of the shower, like, my hair's halfway wet, halfway dry. I start yelling at my husband because obviously this was his fault that I'm feeling this way, and he's just like, you're crazy, you know, rubbing my back, trying to make me feel better, getting me my boxed water. When I was pregnant with Viv, I was obsessed with boxed water, and that's all I wanted to drink. Like, I would constantly go to Target and buy boxed water. I was obsessed. Anyway, so he's getting me my water, and he's rubbing my back, and my mom comes downstairs, and I am just sobbing in bed. Like, I'm in a towel, I'm not even dressed, and I'm just sobbing because it hurt. And my mom's like, oh my God, like, I'm not gonna be able to do my colonoscopy, like, let's just go to the hospital. And I said, no, because I have to be 5 centimeters dilated or they won't take me, and I don't want to be at the hospital, like, laboring. I'd rather lay in bed right here and labor. And she was like, are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital? And I'm like, I'm sure, like, I'd rather just labor in the car. Like, let's go to your colonoscopy, I'll labor in the car. Then right after your colonoscopy, we'll just go to labor and delivery and, like, see what's up, see how long, see how dilated I am, to see, like, how long this is actually gonna take. So she says, okay. My sister comes downstairs. My husband comes with us to the door, and he said, you know, should I go with y'all? And my mom's like, no, you know, we'll let you know if anything changes. And he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go back to sleep, because again, he took sleeping pills. So it's like 8 o'clock at this point, 8:15 maybe. and my car has no gas in it. So we're at the gas station, my mom's putting gas in, and I'm in the front seat and I can't sit. Like, I'm like pulling myself up, like I won't sit down. It hurts so much. So my mom sees me not being able to sit, and she's like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna be able to go. I'm not gonna be able to get my colonoscopy. So she's telling my sister to call, and I'm saying no, like I'm not 5 centimeters dilated. I'm not gonna be admitted, like I don't wanna do this. And my mom's like, I don't care. So she's yelling at my sister in the back. My sister's on the phone with the hospital, and she's pretending to be my mom, and she's like, my daughter's in labor. I can't make my colonoscopy. We're gonna have to postpone it. So that's done, and we're on our way to labor and delivery now. So we get to the hospital, and oh my gosh, I can't even explain it. The pain was just crazy. It was crazy. And I'm walking in, and I am just, you know how everyone's like, oh, you could squeeze my hand during labor? My mom told me that. But I decided that I'd rather pull her hair. And I don't know like what was going through my mind. I don't know what was going through my mom's mind to let me, but I was just yanking her down. My mom is 4'11", okay? I'm 5'1" and almost a half. But my mom is 4'11", she's short, and I'm like over her, and she's just like carrying me in basically, and I'm just pulling her hair down, and on the way in the hospital, all these people are like, you're almost there, and I'm just like, and like trying to like act all like cool, calm, and collective, while really I'm not, and my mom's just like sitting there just taking it. So we get to the elevator, and we start going up, and I look at my mom, and I say, I'm gonna pass out. And she looks at me and she's like, you can't, like I can't hold you with the baby right now, I can't. I have a big history of passing out. I used to have heart problems, so like this is a normal thing, like my mom's constantly catching me. But I was pregnant, I had a baby. That's way more weight than she could carry. So she was just like, you can't. As soon as we get off the elevator, my mom's yelling at my sister to go get a wheelchair. So my sister's running, she doesn't even know which way labor and delivery is. She's never been to this hospital. And she finds it, and they come out with a wheelchair, and they ask me, can you sit down? And I said, I'd rather not. So I'm sitting there, not really. I'm like holding myself up still because I can't sit, it hurts. And they roll me to like a labor and delivery bed, and they say, we're gonna check you now. And I'm like, okay, cool. So they check me and they say, you're 8.5 centimeters dilated. And I look at the lady and I say, can I get my epidural right now? Side note, I am terrified of needles. That is my biggest fear. I hate them. I pass out every time. I can't stand needles. Like any flu shot, any shots like that, I refuse to get. Like if I can refuse it, I'm going to. I don't like shots, I don't like needles. So I went to like birthing classes, and they showed us the epidural and they passed it around, and I never looked at it because I was terrified, but I knew I needed it. Like there's no way I could go through labor without an epidural, okay? So I look at the lady and ask her, and she looks me in the eye and says, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, honey. No, you're too far along and the baby's coming soon. And I look at my mom like, you gonna get her? Like, tell her I need this. My mom's just sitting there like, oh, girl. Like, she don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. I am crying. Now I'm yelling at people. I'm yelling at my sister. Someone call my husband, because my husband's asleep on sleeping pills. They call my husband. But because he's on sleeping pills, he's a deep sleeper anyway, okay? So, but because he was on sleeping pills, I needed someone to physically wake him up and make sure that he was in a car out the door on his way here, okay? So that didn't happen. I'm not sure how long it took them to actually do that, but eventually it happened. They somehow let him drive himself to the hospital. I don't know, but he was on his way. That's all that mattered. Cool, one thing down. So back to my no epidural thing. I'm sitting there freaking out because there's no way I can do it. I can't do this. So at this point, it's about 9:15, 9:20-ish, and I'm still freaking out because I'm in so much pain. And they keep telling me how little I am, okay? They just kept looking at me and say, wow, you're so little. And I'm just sitting there like smaller people than me have given birth, and I'm sure you've given them drugs, so give me something. I'm freaking out. they're like, well, we can give you a small dosage of, and I don't even know what they said. I don't know if I let them finish it. Like, I know my mom was talking to them. I don't know, but I was like, yes, like, give that to me. That sounds great. So they put something through my IV and it like calmed me down a little, which was good because my heart rate was skyrocketing. I had oxygen on me because I'm dramatic and I can't breathe. I have so many ice packs on me, like it's ridiculous. So they give me that and I feel so much better. But every time a contraction comes, it's just like so much like I'm trying not to freak out, okay? And the lady that I was yelling at the absolute most starts moving like my knees back and forth. And it honestly helped so much. And at first I just thought she was crazy. I thought she was rude. She told me I could have an epidural. I was mad at this lady. But she starts moving my knees back and forth and it felt so good. Like it took so much pressure off and like everything was okay until contractions hit. Then I started like freaking out, but then it was okay again. So it's like 9:50. I had a boxed water in the car. So my sister told me that she was gonna go smoke real quick and then she'd get my water for me and then she'd come back up. So she leaves. My sister had been here for like 2 months waiting for Viviana to be born. When she leaves, my husband walks in. And as soon as my husband walks in, my water breaks and they say, okay, it's time to have our baby soon. So it's probably like 10 o'clock by now. And, you know, all these people are in there because it's like a student training. They asked me if they could come in. I'm like, sure, like let anybody in, like just give me what I need. Let me have this kid, okay? And I look over at my mom and I say, Mom, I have to use the restroom. And they say, oh, it's time to push, because they heard me. And I said, no, Mommy. And I look at my mom and I said, I have to use the restroom. And then one of the nurses were like, no, like that means it's time to push. And I'm like, no, I really have to go to the potty. And they said, honey, the baby's coming. And I'm just like, okay, like let's do it. So they put my legs up, you know, and they start counting and I start pushing. And I vividly remember just like feeling her head and so much. I'm so sorry, this is going into a lot, but I just remember feeling her head like in between my legs, and it was like in between a contraction, and I was just like, oh my God, like one more push and I'm about to have my baby, like I'm about to have this kid, like this is terrifying, okay? So, you know, I do that one more push and my baby comes out. And I just remember hearing that sweet little crazy newborn cry. And I just, hi, baby. That was the first thing I said was, hi, baby. And she was here. It was 10:17 a.m., February 18th, 2016. She was 6 pounds, 7 ounces, and 19 inches long, and so perfect. About 5 minutes after she was born, my sister walked in. And she missed it, so that sucked. But that's my labor and delivery story. And now she's here. And she's eating M&Ms. But it was a crazy day. And I got the best thing in the whole wide world. And yeah, that's our story. Well, I guess it's ours, huh? This is our story, me and you. Yeah, that's our story. I have a couple of friends who are on their first kid, and labor and delivery is the #1 thing that they're scared about, which obviously makes sense. I was the scaredest of it. So for them and anybody else out there watching who is about to have their first baby, just know the pain's not forever. As soon as it ended, and they put that little baby on my chest, like the whole world was just, everything was fine, everything was completely perfect. Like I felt nothing. I was just so happy, like I had my baby. And it's just all of that work, all of the pain, everything you go through, it's all worth it, I promise you. Say bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Thanks for coming along. Bye.
Bye.